Hopefully this will be the video you'll go to for information. That was terrible, forgive me. So previously I went over the midwinter celebration of Yule, the celebration when the night begins to recede and the sun begins her return. But it does seem that there were specific gods associated with Yule. Who were they? And why were they the ones associated with Yule? Let's explore a little history and find out. While heathenry is a religion in which modern practice has a ton of variety, it seems that there are about 5 gods that might historically have a closer relationship with Yule than others. And this association is supported in various ways, just through mention in records or an examination of what is being celebrated. It should be noted, however, that one of the kennings for the gods is Yule beings, suggesting that perhaps all of the gods were associated with Yule. Now, we should keep in mind that the historical records around Yule are shrouded in a foggy historical cloud. Limited records, often written hundreds of years later, make understanding the nature of Yule a very difficult process. Modern practices today may include all of these gods, some of them, more than these, entirely different deities. It depends on the practice. However, rifling through history, there are some associations that we can conclude from this limited available evidence. So let's dive into this list. The first and the most obvious of the gods of Yule is Odin, who is at least part of the inspiration for the modern image of Santa Claus, and he is called Yulnir, or Yule-Father, and in the Prose Edda, Snorri records that the poets would refer to the gods as Yule beings, suggesting that at this time of year is when the gods are particularly active. And this kenning for Odin suggests that he is the leader of this activity, the father of it, the one who does Yule. The celebration of Yule is a time for reflection as heathens look back on their part of the previous year and look forward to the next. We see the gifts of the gods over the past year and give gifts in return, starting the cycle of reciprocity between us and the gods into the next year. And this would be supported by noting that the month before and the month hence are both called Yule, and for our part in this reciprocity, we make offering to the gods. And Odin is a special choice in this ritual, mentioned in the Saga of Hakon the Good as he to whom the first toast is given. Snorri mentions that a toast is given to Odin for victory, most likely in the context of war, but Odin is a god of challenges and struggle, which is probably why Christians likened him to Christ in later years. As he wanders in the stories, he is captured, tortured, and fights various enemies along the way. But his strength to endure and overcome challenges is most notable, ranking him among the gods who can even conquer death. So we can see that Odin isn't just a war god. The toast to Odin can be seen as a toast for that inner strength in the face of adversity in the coming year, or for that wisdom needed to overcome any challenge that you might meet. The second deity on our list is Freyr, historically one of the most popular gods among the Icelanders and a central deity among the Swedes at the famous Temple of Uppsala. Freyr stands in contrast to Odin as a peace god rather than a war god, at least primarily. He was, however, one that would fiercely defend peace with the sword, or an antler, depending on the day. A quick note. Most of the Norse gods fall into a category of war god. Even Freyr, who is noted as a peace god, functions as a sort of war god. Surprising no one, really. This is, after all, a religion of peoples known for their raiding. And yet, weapons were banned from his temples. Bloodshed in his presence was seen as an offense. Freyr is a complex deity, but this dichotomy can perhaps be appreciated by understanding his motivation, which is prosperity. Through his status as a god of plenty, Freyr promotes peace and fertility, in addition to the resolve to defend them. An offering to Freyr is to a peaceful and prosperous future, and the strength to ensure it. Freyr's association with Yule comes from 2 sources. The Saga of Hakon the Good mentions him in passing as part of one of the toasts given at Yule, but there is also a Mercury attestation from much later, in which a legendary figure named King Heidrek gives oaths upon a boar. Now, manuscripts disagree on whether or not this was done at Yule, even if the boar is a clear reference to Freyr in both cases, but this is the saga from where we get the concept of Yule oaths, and it is the only attestation as far as I can tell. Though this attestation does suggest that they were customary and functioned as sort of like a far more serious form of today's practice of the New Year's resolution. Adam of Bremen gives a specific record of sacrifices to Freyr in the form of poured libations, which is likely not specifically in reference to a Yule celebration, but he's one of the few deities for which we have specific attestations of sacrifices and practices around temples. So if you wish to sacrifice to Freyr on Yule, one way among many might be to pour libations, such as juice, water, ale, or wine, to give a toast to Freyr in association with peace and prosperity for the year to come. The next god on our list is Njorthr, god of ships and wealth, and strongly associated with the sea harvest as a fertility god. Njorthr and Freyr are toasted at the same time in the Saga of Hakon the Good, and this story is one of the examples of the possible rise of Freyr worship replacing the function of Njorthr worship as the primary fertility deity, as Njorthr and Freyr are referenced together rather than individually. I've been saying Hakon instead of Hakon, which is, I'm sure, still not the best pronunciation, but I'm sure it's not hacking away at the sanity of some of you in the comment section as much as my last video. Snorri's Saga of Hakon the Good mentions the toast to Njorthr and Freyr as toast to peace and a good harvest. But we can note other elements of Njorthr to expand upon what this toast means with Njorthr specifically. Njorthr is a god of ships, wealth, and merchants, and may be a god to give offering on Yule in looking forward to safe travels or a profitable business venture. For myself, Njorthr functions along with Odin as a god of traveling, Odin as the wanderer for wisdom, and Njorthr for the more purposeful traveling to see friends or for work. Long journeys in the sagas would be taken by ship, because that's what the time period and the culture demanded. In reconstructing this spirituality, our long journeys might take many forms of transportation, so the application of Njorthr may become more diverse. Now, personally, I take a Yule toast to Njorthr as a toast to safe passage, be that by land, sea, or air. The fourth deity on our list is Thor, the Thunderer. Thor's association with Yule is one that is far more implied than explicitly stated. The Yule goat is the most obvious and readily available evidence of Thor's association with Yule, but the meaning of the goat is varied and largely lost to time. However, it is possible that the goat has some association with Thor's special relationship with mankind as the protector of humanity and the gods against the Jotun. The Saga of Hakon the Good mentions Thor in a rather comical moment of negotiating the Christian king's discomfort with the Yule rituals. Snorri records that Earl Sigurd dedicated the sacrificial drink to Odin and then handed it to the king. Now, King Hakon is said to have made the sign of the cross over the beaker before drinking it, and then, when people were upset at this, Earl Sigurd tried to negotiate a peace through a compromise, as he had done earlier, suggesting that this was in fact the sign of the hammer, to dedicate the drink to Thor, as is absolutely normal. Whether or not there was ever a sign of the hammer, or if this was just something that Earl Sigurd made up in order to prevent bloodshed at a sacred feast is unknown for certain, but it does seem like an excuse that the clever Sigurd would have pulled straight out of his butt. However, the fact that this excuse managed to get people to settle down suggests that dedicating a toast to Thor was not at all uncommon during Yule, combining that with the Yule goat, and it gives us a fair likelihood of Thor's association with Yule. Thor's associations became incredibly varied, especially in the later Viking Age. He is described as associated with protection, fertility, safe travels, war, determination, strength, and obviously weather, storms, and thunder. As a result, a toast or offering to Thor on Yule could have a variety of meanings in looking back on the past year and forward to the next year. The final deity on our list is Sol, the goddess of the sun. And what is Yule other than a celebration of Sol's return to our lives? The solstice marks the longest of the long nights, and in the coming days, the sunlight grows longer. So it makes sense to offer a toast or a sacrifice to Sol as part of Yule. And Sol is not a deity often attested in the sagas, but she is often a very central deity for many modern heathens. The context of an offering to Sol would be that of welcoming her return to the Northern Hemisphere, as she offers light and warmth as gifts showering each day. It may also be appropriate to toast her along with Freyr and Njorthr, as they are associated with the fertility of crops as fed by the sun. And Freyr's association with the rays of the sun implies a close friendship between Freyr and Sol. I should include at least a nod to the ancestors, and maybe even the Haminja on this list. The final toast in the Saga of Hakon the Good is a memorial toast to the ancestors. Yule, both ancient and modern, is a season that involves great gatherings. Often those gatherings are centered around family. And taking the time to give a toast to those past includes them in the party, as many heathens hold that the ancestors are very much active in their spiritual lives. And this includes ancestors, how we commonly think of them as our relatives, and our spiritual ancestors that we may adopt through heathenry. Ancestors of the spirit, if you will. And you may offer a toast to your grandmother, as well as Eric the Red, King Hadding, Odd the Deep-Minded, or Bodvar Bjarki. We may not be the direct descendants of these people, but they are our spiritual ancestors as heathens, and we carry their stories. As I said, the Haminja would also make sense here, as she is the representative of the luck of your ancestors, passed down through the ages. A toast to her along with the ancestors isn't historically attested, but it does fit the theme. Toasting the Haminja would be a way to give thanks for the luck of the past year, and a toast to the luck of the next year going forward. But let me know your thoughts. Will you be celebrating Yule? And if so, which deities, if any, might you be incorporating into the celebration? Let me know down in the comments. There were so many awesome stories about Yule celebrations in the comment section of the previous video. And some of y'all got me to dig a little bit more into the sources, which is excellent. If y'all enjoyed these short breakdowns, be sure to check out my playlist on the gods, which includes more detailed breakdowns on each deity. But with that, hail to my patrons for making this content possible. It's good to have people at your back. A toast to the algorithm gods. May the like and subscribe button appease them. And I have here in my notes something Yule bell. Remember to find a way or make one. Not really that much diversity in Yule puns, is there? Like, I've got them all written here in my Yule log, and